I know it's very sad, it's very heartbreaking, but we should know.
He wanted
Okay.
also to be part of the empire. He wanted to become an artist. Hey folks, hello and welcome to another episode of Stories with Kam and Jun. I'm Arjun,
I'm Kamakshi.
and today we're going to be talking about a slightly somber subject, a slightly
Serious subject.
macabre and serious subject called war. And why we are talking about this is because one of the things I like to do, right, is to talk about wars or read about wars, not talk about them in whatever sense, but read about them, understand as to why what's happening and what the origins are, what the ramifications are, what the ramifications have been, ramifications could be, and what lies in store, basically, right? So today's topic, I think we'll delve into a little bit of World War II. Just a disclaimer that I am no expert on World War II, but all of my observations or all of whatever you'll be hearing today is through whatever I've learned, whatever I've read,
Or
uh,
seen in
uh,
the movies.
yeah, or seen in movies as well.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's going to be the topic for today. I think Kamakshi will be more of a
So, if you would have seen our introduction video, you would have seen that you're going to see a lot of our faces and then we got calling some external guests. Let's just treat this episode as an external guest coming in. Yay! Clap, clap, clap for Arjun. Because Arjun is our first guest who'll be talking about World War II majorly. I'm going to be asking question. I have heard all his stories, whatever he has to tell me in these 6 years. 7?
almost.
Almost 7 years. And I think whatever he has taught me, I find it very interesting. I think we should be sharing this with the world because they're pretty really good, the way he narrates it, the way he tells, and the whatever has happened has been very serious. But I know it's very sad, it's very heartbreaking, but we should know about it too.
Yeah.
So I think I'm gonna
No,
start with the
there are
first question.
wonderful stories. Sorry to cut you out, but there are wonderful stories in the sense of there are stories of battle. Obviously, there are stories of triumph, and there's also the worst part of World War II, which is or any war in general,
Right.
which is death and which is suffering and loss in all forms, right? Economy, life, just your day to day living also becomes a major issue. So I think we'll just kind of touch upon all of these aspects and try to see what.
Bring that, yeah, try to bring that whatever we can.
Yeah,
So let me just moderate this
sure.
and I'm going to ask questions to
Sure.
Arjun and see.
Interrogator.
Yeah, I'm going to ask those questions because because I'm a very curious person, and I ask a lot of questions. So let me just ask those in my way, and let's fingers crossed we can bring out the best of what we can.
Yeah.
So Arjun, first question: what draws you? To be very honest, in my mind I always keep thinking that why is this guy so obsessed with World War II? And because I've seen you read books, that's number one. Okay, fine, that's just books. But then I've seen you read, like, before sleeping, I have seen Arjun really reading some articles on Wikipedia about some one specific person, could be like Himmler. And then I just peep and I'm like, Himmler? Because before sleeping, a wife would always think, right, what is he doing on the phone? And then he'll just peep and say, we're reading about Himmler. And then it generates curiosity that who is Himmler? What is this kind of person? What is this person? And what happened? Then I think my question very direct is that why you get drawn to such kind of sad topic, and why you read about it so much.
I I am a very curious person by nature, and I like to know things that are happening around me. Right? It could be anything in the world, and somehow this one topic, World War II, has somewhere it has flicked a switch in my brain, saying that why did this happen? Did it even need to happen? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Could it have been prevented in the first place? Who are the main um, actors or who are the main protagonists of this whole? None of them are protagonists, by the way. All of them are antagonists. To be honest, none of them are should be looked in a positive light. To be honest, because in the end they created a scenario wherein the world went to war. Right.
Right.
So uh, just wanted to kind of get into the minds of these people if I could, and see what drives them to do such
Right.
atrocious
Like
things. Or
what were they thinking, right?
yeah,
To do such
exactly,
atrocious. Yeah.
what was the need to, like, think of exterminating a whole race,
Right.
right? Just because you
That's
might have had some kind of image in your head or imagination that this has happened because of them or that or this, and because that you start looking out for ways to exterminate a whole race. I don't think that's the right way to go about things,
and
right?
that
And
that's what
that's
fascinates you.
no, that's the trigger, I would say. Fascination is more on the lines of strategy, right? When you look at each battle, there's a Battle of the Bulge, there's the D-Day landing, then there's different battles, right? There's the Blitz that happened, and um, there's the Battle of Stalingrad, and so many battles within World War II. So one is I like to look at why they did certain strategies, because each the aggressor and the defender each took different steps, and I like to kind of see why they took those steps, right? For example, when the Blitz happened, Britain could have very well kind of surrendered, or could have just said, taken the route that France probably took and signed an armistice. Or
So I think when we talk about Brits, we should just talk about other things and then we'll come to this topic because then we will just delve into it. So that's the first question. Now you tell me, why did even World War II started? And then we'll touch upon different wars, right? So you tell
so
me why it happened.
so from what I've understood and learnt and read and seen and all of it, is that I think there were remnants of World War One,
Okay.
right? Because of the Treaty of Versailles that was signed, and it was so against Germany, and it was also against a few other nations as well. It caused a lot of ripple effects in within the world, especially in Europe. There was kind of this simmering fire happening, but it not blown up into a full scale war. But I think there were a lot of intricate details that had happened, and there were remnants of that. The Ottoman Empire had ceased to exist, and the new Turkish Revolution had happened, and then there was also the Soviet Union had started gathering pace, right? In terms of they had removed their SARS, so they had gotten the Soviet system of governance and all of that. Lenin started it, and then followed by Stalin. So there were all of these intricate things that were happening. Yugoslavia was carved into Yugoslavia before it was part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, if I'm not mistaken. And after the World War One, Yugoslavia became a country. So small things, and then the Prussian Empire, I think, they came into existence, and they were kind of ruling the roost in a part of Germany and Russia, and Germany had to give away a lot of land,
Okay.
right?
So
They
that
lost a
was
lot of land
so
as
I think
well.
that was one of the
So
factors.
yeah, and economy wise, I think Germany, again, a lot of sanctions on Germany. It kind of became that Germany was the main contributor of World War One, or the bad actor of World War One, and they have to now repair their own actions. So much so that I think one clause of the treaty says that Germany had to disarm their
Okay.
army, or they couldn't have an army, they couldn't have an air force and
Hmm.
stuff like that. So all of this, I think it's all put together that came across as
They
World War
felt that
Two.
they were getting
They got the raw deal. They
pressurized.
got the raw deal. Just to put it
Uh-huh.
in blunt terms, they felt that they got the raw end of the deal, and they also uh, and also a lot of the economic factors also didn't help. Right, the Great Depression happened in 1929, and that also kind of uh, burnt a hole in the average German
Right.
pocket, and they started feeling disgruntled with their current system of governance. So they wanted a change,
Hmm.
and unfortunately, that change happened to be Hitler.
Hitler. And when all of these changes were happening, was Hitler a baby back then, or
No,
he was in his youth, or was he
no.
seeing all of this and that kind of inspired him to become that leader
So
so atrocious?
Hitler actually was born in Vienna, right? He was born in Austria, that part of then Austria, rather now Austria, and then he wanted to become an artist.
Okay.
Hitler was fascinated by the world of arts. I think Vienna is even now, I think it's a capital of the arts, right? You have operas, you have like very good museums, and art is very highly spoken of in Austria and in Vienna in particular. So I would say that Hitler was enamored by the arts, but somehow he was disgruntled again with the kind of bureaucracy and the kind of um, he was angry with Austria seceding from Germany and becoming a separate country. He wanted
Okay.
Austria to be part of the empire. Um, I'm sorry to forgetting a few things, but the German Empire, so to say,
Okay.
right? So he wanted uh, Austria to be part of it. So that was his disgruntlement, and then he started becoming his actions and thoughts aligned more towards becoming a politician or a bureaucrat because that was also a very high standing position in society as well.
And what was
He
the
was a failed
pivoting?
artist. He was a failed artist too. So
He
that's
was a
also,
failed
yeah,
artist.
he never was a good
Once again, let's
artist.
just go back to when you
Yeah,
say failed artist
yeah.
because just
So
say.
yeah, he was a failed artist. He was never a good artist, and that also I don't know how much of that contributed into his kind of anger or his kind of frustration in his future life. But he was not a child when all of this happened,
Okay.
and when World War One took place, he was one of the soldiers. So
Okay, so he was a soldier.
he was a
And
soldier.
what do you, which I think point or situation you would say that made him famous as a leader? What was that? What was that point in his life which basically made him the Hitler we all know?
I think one thing that he was good at was his oratory skills,
Okay.
and he used to do these oratory sessions at in Germany. They have this concept of beer halls. Germany is good
Oh,
for known
correct,
for their
correct.
beer.
Yes.
They have their beer hall concept, and I think a lot of intellectual debates and discussions used to happen in these beer halls. And he was from Munich. He was from the Munich area, right? And there is where he started off his whole ideology of this Aryan race and this superiority. He felt somewhere again slighted by this whole feeling that Germany got the raw end of the deal. Germany was blamed for the entire fiasco of World War One, and in the end, Germany had to pay so much. They had to pay money. They had to disarm their army, military, and all of that. So I think that was already playing up in his mind. And I think there was one more figure and character that kind of put it in his head that he's the chosen one for Germany. He's the one who's to take
Messiah.
Messiah kind of
Mm.
figure. I think there was some folklore and that kind of went into his mind, and he became more and more emboldened.
Mm.
Then he got in cohorts with a lot of these people like Himmler became a friend of his. Goebbels, who was a script writer, he was actually a script writer, Goebbels, right?
Mm.
He became a friend of his. So he had a bunch of these people. They also tried to do a coup very early
Okay.
in the time. It was around 19 in the late 1920s. That failed miserably, right? And when that failed miserably, he thought it's done. His movement is done. This was the start of the first Nazi movement, and he thought his whole movement was done. The whole first Nazi movement was over. So Himmler was shot. Something happened to Himmler. I don't remember. He was shot or something.
Himmler,
Goebbels was
Himmler was his best friend or kind of a in his
Himmler.
cabinet
No,
what he has created.
Himmler was a guy who was trying to mimic Hitler. He thought,
Ah,
oh, I could. Himmler was also had a kind of strange background and childhood and all of that. He was also failed in his own way, and he thought I could mimic Hitler and try to become big.
so I think next question would be that how did Hitler found the fame he found in the history, and also Arjun, tell me that how was his cabinet design, like what how people with those kind of ideology he found those people, like, how did he find those people, right? Number one, and then how why did they join him, what was the motive, and how what was the story of these people together till the whatever they did in Germany. Yeah.
So I think Hitler had become famous through his oratory skills. He somehow had this gift of speaking well, and they have this concept of beer halls in Germany, right? Beer is a very famous thing in
So beer hall is
Germany.
basically a place or a pub where
It's
you
like a
go.
pub. It's
It's
a
a
pub.
pub. You go
You can,
and
yeah.
just like nowadays we do stand-up comedy or
Yeah,
whatever
yeah. So
shows.
it used to be places where they would
Yeah.
do like a lot of intellectual debates and discussions and stuff like that about politics, about general culture, nature, art, whatever it would be that time.
Right.
And somehow this guy found a guru who put it in his head that this guy is the chosen one.
Hitler.
Hitler,
Okay. Huh.
that he found a guru. He found that he's the chosen one. There's this Aryan theory that they will be the supreme race in the
Race.
world, and so on and so forth. And there were already people who were kind of listening to this guy. So it's like putting out a story, right? You put out someone puts out a story. Say for example, there's some person in Bangalore. He's supposed to be the new prime minister. So there are immediately there'll be people around that person who will kind of try to
Support him.
support him, try to
Drawn to that
gain
ideology.
support to that ideology, try to gain also their own popularity to the through that ideology and through supporting that person. So imagine Hitler like that, and you have people like Goebbels and Himmler who suddenly came into this whole sphere because they already had that ideology in their head probably,
Okay.
and that was also a bit of motivation.
So this Himmler and Goebbels you're talking about, these were of the same age. Were they friends, or how did they meet, and how did they form this trio? I mean, was it trio
No,
even?
it was. I'm just taking 2-3 names here,
Okay.
but they're all people who somehow found this spark in Hitler. They thought he would be the one to lead Germany to glory, kind of a messiah kind of figure. Like again, like I said, there's this prophecy, that chosen one kind of prophecy.
Yeah.
So they kind of rode on that bandwagon, and I think that's where he also got this confidence that I have supporters, I could do something. So they built a army called the Young Boys and all of that, which
Okay.
would later turn to be the Gestapo and the SS in the future. But
Okay.
I will come to that
Huh.
later. But
So this
the
army
Young Boys
they
was like a, scouts and guides kind of program, but it was it was more like a paramilitary association. They would go and do protests, but they would also do violent protests and stuff like that. So things like this happened, and
so
unfortunately, people of the same ideology kind of got this confidence that they could do something.
right. So this army you're talking about, tell us more. What did this army do? Number one, and also, was it in parallel to the current national army? Did
Yeah,
the
yeah, it was a
Germany
paramilitary force. It was not even part of their army. It was
army?
like a
And how?
silent underground.
Why did Germany allow this to even
It
sprout?
was underground. It was just springing. It. I am
They
saying
didn't take it
army. So
seriously,
yeah, it
basically.
was an army in a loose sense of terms, right? They
Okay.
were not given like some kind of major training or some kind of major weapons or whatever. Whatever they had, spears, knives, whatever they could find, they would fight with that sticks and stuff. But it was not a great assembled army. Or
Okay.
Himmler
So
was the leader. So Himmler himself was. If
general.
I go back to, I think Himmler's story is also very similar to Hitler. He was also some failed actor or a failed socialist or something like that happened with him. I'm not able to kind of
Recollect.
recall. Actually, if people want to kind of understand a little bit of more about their backgrounds, there's a wonderful show on Netflix. We'll put a plug in it at the end of the episode, right?
Okay.
We can probably put a link of the Netflix episode itself. Like, there's not episode, the whole series. It's to do with, I think it's called Hitler's Men. So you can actually see each one's story and how it all came together, and also how the Nazi movement came into being. And again, coming back to your question of how Hitler became the famous Hitler or infamous Hitler that we know of. So all of these guys supported him. They tried a coup, and it failed miserably. He was put in jail. I think, back of his mind, he thought this movement is over. But the political upheavals of that time in Germany, it so happened that the chancellor was weakened. He was getting old. There was no alternative. People had grown kind of. The economic depression also happened, 1929. I think that kind of moved people towards more hyper nationalism and things of, okay,
Extreme thinking and
we have to protect our rights, our culture, our ideologies and stuff like that. And that's where his movement again got a spring. And then he was let out from jail, and he started this Nazi party as a party. That's when they said, okay, let's not do all of these underground dealings, paramilitary activities. Let's do it as a proper party. They won good amount of seats, and then it started. Then the whole thing started. The parliament, German parliament, there was a fire at the German parliament. He used this very conveniently. Hitler being,
after him coming in the
yeah,
parliament.
yeah, yeah. So after him coming into power, or just before he came to power and became the dictator of Germany, he was a chancellor. He was named the chancellor of Germany and all of that. So this parliament thing, fire happened, and I think he used it very cleverly. He blamed the communists because they found one communist in and around the parliament. They blamed it on him,
So
whether
there
it
were
really
two
happened or not.
parties, Nazi party and Communist party.
Yeah, there were two main ideologies was the communist, which
Okay.
is the left think, and
The
these were
right,
the right
of
wings,
course.
right? So
Yeah.
uh, they somehow succeeded,
In
and
blaming the Communist party.
communist and like I said, the political discussions around that time and the political upheavals around that time, the हम जो माहौल बोलते हैं ना, so around in Germany was such that these guys got that support,
Hmm.
and that's how he became more famous. He started his oratory skills became better, and through his own oratory skills, he won over the crowd. Right,
Okay.
people would just come to listen to him. They were like, "Yeah, he's such a charismatic speaker." So he vowed he had that charm of the
Impressing
language and the
people.
words, right? That was something good, and I think that's where he was impressed.
Okay. So now he came in the power.
Mm-hmm.
And what, so was he crazy like that generally as a person, or there was some external influence or people making him think that way that he became so, he did such atrocities and he did what he did?
So, to be honest, whether he wanted Jews to be exterminated or not is a big debatable question. That's a big debate even today among all historians, I guess. One thing is for sure, he wanted to blame the Jews for all of that happened after World War One, because the Jews made up a major part of society and they were a major part of the politics of that time. And the Jews apparently that time negotiated for the Versailles Treaty and all of that happened. So that's one thing that he had in his mind कि Jews हमारे खिलाफ है, Germany के खिलाफ है. So that is one thing that led him. Obviously, external forces are there, likes of the Himmler, Goring, Goebbels. Goring was another character in this whole saga. There's many characters like that, right? If we go into each one's story, it can become a whole
Yeah,
podcast series itself about each one's
correct, correct.
stories. There's Rudolf Hess, who's like kind of like a Bakt on the Bakt kind of Hitler. So all of these kind of guys are there and who are expounding his own theory. They are talking about अरे यार हम भी ऐसा ही करना चाहिए, हमें ऐसा ही करना चाहिए. Adolf Eichmann, who was later caught by the Mossad, which is again a Netflix movie, right?
Right.
Where they catch him and they put him into trial and all of that. So there are a lot of characters that kind of are in and around Hitler who were kind of talking to him, saying, "Yeah, Jews are the problem, but what do we do with the Jews?"
Okay.
Right? And the other part for Hitler was that this Aryan theory, Aryan race. So our race, for the German race to survive, Germany is a small country. We need to expand. He called it Lebensraum, which is
Lebens?
Lebensraum,
Okay.
Lebensraum, and that meant more living room for the Germans. And that's where his whole ideology of invading other countries and making them part of the German Empire and making it part of German living to Germans to live kind of came into force. And that this I would say is the origin of like his whole theory of Lebensraum was the origin of the World War II is what I would say.
Okay. And then,
In my view, at least.
yeah, and then when he thought of this, what was, how did he strategize? And tell us about those gas chambers. Like, who made him do those things?
So, like I said, that's a debatable question. No one knows who
Who
actually took the
took the
decision.
decision? But
There was a
did he have?
conference that happened, right?
Huh, tell us about that
It was called the
conference.
final solution.
The
They
final
wanted
solution.
to.
So, usse pehle, before the final solution, what all they did to remove the race?
So first of all, they had put them in ghettos, right? उनको एक so
No,
basically they
let's go back to 1 second before
yeah.
even ghetto. So, World War II start hua. What
So even before World War II started, Jews were starting to like
migrate
they
out
were
of?
not migrate out. Their living rights were kind of diminished. Their rights were diminished. Living chodo, their rights were diminished, right? You like as a normal German, you could not have any kind of relationship with a Jew, business wise, whatever, relationship wise, like an affair or even sexual relationships. Nothing. it was all banned, right? It was lawfully banned. You couldn't do business with them. You couldn't buy certain things from them. They had to be in a certain part of the town only. They were basically pushed to a corner, right?
Okay.
Already, even before World War II broke out. World War II broke out in 1939. I am talking of things that happened between 1933 and 38, right? This all happened during that time,
Okay.
right? So um, he had started putting things in the mind saying Jews were the problem, World War One, mein ye hua, wo hua. So all of this was happening even before World War Two. World War Two became kind of a accessory to his whole theory of Jews are the bad problem, and
Right.
then people around him also said we have to find a final solution for this Jewish matter.
Yeah.
They called it
And
the final solution to the Jewish question. That was what it was called
so
actually.
this was done after the World War started, or before even World War started? They thought, okay, we need to have a final solution to this problem.
This happened, I think, in 1940, 41. There
Okay,
was
so
a
later.
there was a conference in, it was called the Wannsee Conference. It happened in a guest house in Berlin. And where people of the Nazi party and great people of the society of that time, who were also kind of Nazis, right? Not kind of Nazis, they were part of the Nazi party,
Supporting them,
supporting,
or
and they were also officially part of the Nazi party. They might not have held ministry roles or leading roles in the party. They sat around and they started discussing what to do. One of the interesting theories that apparently Adolf Eichmann came up with was to send them to Madagascar,
Acha.
to make that whole island or that whole country completely full of Jews. Somehow they found that economically expensive, because imagine having to ship so many people. There was no flights or whatever, they were probably, and you have to ship so many people. Imagine putting them all in one
Of
ship
course,
and
yeah.
doing it. It's a huge expensive,
Logistically, it was not possible at that
logistically
time.
expensive affair.
Right.
So then I think there was this guy called Heydrich, and he was the one who came up with this solution, saying, "Why do we need to do this? We'll have these uh, what do you call them? Concentration camps, and there we'll use them for our labor, the able-bodied ones, and the not so able-bodied ones we'll kill them." So it's a final solution for us. So they took all that gold, everything, and then whatever happened in the concentration camps is something else. Like, again, these are small tidbits that we can speak about, but the horrors that happened there, I think we can dedicate stories and stories to the
Yeah, it's
horrors that happened
beyond
there.
comprehension. It's just so
Yeah,
bad.
yeah.
Yeah, we've seen. I mean, I personally do not like to watch such movies because it's so
I know you are
bad.
not that kind of
I
person
can't.
who.
I can't. I don't have heart to see such
Yeah,
things.
yeah.
So,
No, it is sad.
to be
There
very
are
honest, I've heard stories from your mouth, but I've never not seen a movie, and I would not like to
like
see a
if
movie.
if people who have watched Schindler's List probably can relate to this, especially the scene wherein there's a small girl in a red dress who comes and is running around and all of that, and then you see the same small red dress in a like a dump of corpses.
Yeah.
So it's a small girl. She's like what? She must be 3 years, 2 years. What has
Yeah.
she done? She's just that she's a Jew. That's it.
That's all.
That's her only issue,
Correct.
right?
And now, once he did all of this against Jews, so he had just problem with Jews, and he wanted more land, and that's why he started killing people
So
left,
these are
right,
two
center.
separate issues, right? One is the
Right.
problem with the Jews,
Yeah.
but I think the major issue
That
was
did
the
not
land.
cause. That did not cause.
Yeah,
World War Two.
yeah,
World War Two was caused because he wanted more land.
land
Yeah,
exactly.
and then he
That's
started
invading.
invading other countries in
So
Europe.
first he invaded Czechoslovakia. No one said anything. Okay. He invaded Austria. No one said anything. He invaded Poland. That's when people thought, okay, this is getting serious,
Serious
and
now.
that's when Britain and France declared war, and that's when it became a world war.
Hmm.
He had already invaded and he had annexed Czechoslovakia, right? I think it was called Surland or Surland is what I think it was called. I might be wrong. Sorry, guys. But he invaded Czechoslovakia. It was done. He invaded Austria. It was done. No one. They were keeping an eye out. Poland was the breaking point because Poland. So Poland is kind of Eastern Europe. It's a kind of amalgamation of Eastern and Western Europe. And what Eastern Europe thought was, okay, this guy's coming towards us, Russia. And Western Europe was like, dude, this guy's then going to eat us this from this side as well,
Correct.
right? So that's when France and Britain declared war, and that's when it turned out to be World War. And why? And then this guy had, by the time, picked his side, and he had made strong allies with a similar kind of personality in Mussolini, kind of a megalomaniac who would only think about himself, cult of personality built around himself,
Narcissist.
narcissist, um, who would only.
And Mussolini was where?
He was in Italy.
Okay.
He has his own story, and he was a journalist. Imagine,
Okay.
and from there he became the dictator of Italy. Then he saw that Japan is a p- good empire to ally with, because again their theories also kind of match with mine. They are also looking for more land, and they are looking to expand. Had their conflicts with China. They are starting towards Korea. They were coming towards Burma.
Right.
Burma next was India, right?
Hmm.
So they were, and Burma was all occupied by British that time. So they
So,
were having.
so basically, Japan was coming from the east, and these guys were trying
Yeah,
to
so
do.
so this world war was happening in different, so they call it as different theaters of war, right? So one was happening in the Pacific, when Japan went and invaded, oh sorry, when went and attacked Pearl Harbor.
Correct.
US was drawn into it, and then you have this European theater, which was a major theater wherein East Europe, West Europe, all of this was happening. Then you have Asia, wherein Japan is trying to do China and Korea and trying to annex all of that. So all of it, I think, all of these somewhere put together caused what we call as the Great War.
The Great
right?
War, the Great World War. So now, once the French and the Britain said, okay, fine, now we're gonna do a full-fledged
Declare a
war
war on.
with these guys. Then what happened? Tell me about the downfall.
So then what happened?
And by that time, how many people and Jews he had killed?
Well, I can't put a number on how many Jews he had killed. I don't think there's a number as to by this time he had killed so many Jews. By that time he had killed so many Jews. Millions of Jews were killed by the end of the World War. So that's
Some Jews which were left, where did they actually take the shelter?
migrated to different parts of the world.
Majorly which?
Well, one of the ramifications of World War II was creation of Israel,
Of
and
course.
that itself has now ballooned into a new other
Issue.
conflict and issue.
Correct.
That's a 70-year-old long conflict that's not been solved, and it is nowhere looking like it's going to be solved, right?
Yeah.
Even in if today's time, we are talking about World War, and there's a war happening there.
And with the people who
Right?
were part of World War.
Exactly.
They were
So-
actually victims. So there's one mistake you always keep telling me, that what was made in World War II, which made English as the global language rather than French,
You're,
it was not there?
No, you're mixing up things now.
Okay.
So that was a war that happened long back.
So my next question and the last question would be, what led to the downfall of the entire thing? Because once the Britain and French declared war against Germany, and for the other side, in the eastern side, Japanese are doing their own thing. What led to the downfall of Hitler, number one, and the World War II, how it became?
Ended.
Yeah, how
So-
it ended.
I'll try to keep it as short as possible, because if I don't give context, probably viewers will
Of
not
course, not
understand.
understand,
But there's a backstory, or there's a context to this, is that when Germany invaded Poland, Russia got a little alert, and Russia said, "Let's ally with Germany." And Stalin and Hitler were friends. Two megalomaniacs who had their own cults of personalities, who probably hated each other otherwise, but they somehow became friends. And they said, let's carve Poland into two. You take it from the west, Germany, I'll take it from the east. So, and we'll carve it into two. We'll carve Europe into two, almost. That's what they kind of figured out. But unbeknownst to Stalin, unknown to him, Hitler already had made up his mind that ठीक है ये कर लूंगा. But he already had this mind to double cross him and invade Soviet Union.
He wanted that also.
Yeah, he tried to do that, and I think he was very successful in the early part of invading Soviet Union, and that's when they were taken aback, because all of their focus is on Poland. This guy went from behind. Imagine एक आगे से आ रहा आर्मी, तुम ऐसे जाके पीछे से मार रहे हो. तो
So they were all shocked.
they were all shocked. They were not ready. But I think what cost them the war was winter in Russia. They kind of underestimated that, and in Stalingrad they struggled, and that's it. I think that was where Hitler or the German army lost it, because he had put so much focus on Soviet Union, because obviously it was a bigger region and all of that. He sent so many people there. They were all stuck without medical supplies, without armed supplies, without any food supplies, nothing. They're stuck in winter.
Winters, yes, snow.
They're not able to move because everything is stuck. You're not able to move your tanks. You're not able to move your carriages, whatever at that time. So that causes downfall. Russian soldiers were not so much at that place, and they were here still in Poland and border. So, and by the time they went to the Allies side, so there were two sides in World War, right? Axis and Allies. So
Correct.
they went to the Allies side, and I think that was one of the major downfalls of Hitler.
And how he died
Hitler committed suicide. He couldn't even face.
after this.
No, this was in 1941-42. This Russia thing. He died in 1945 when he. By the time Allies had also become strong, US had entered the World War because the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor on December 7th, 1941. So all that happened, and they said, okay, they entered. So he was cornered from all sides, right? He knew that he was going to be caught. Again, from the east, the Russian army had encircled Berlin. From the west of Berlin, the US and the Allied army, the other parts of the Allied army had encircled. It was a race between the Soviet army and the other Allied forces to find Hitler. So he knew that his days were numbered. He just said, okay, rather than being caught, let's commit suicide. But yeah, even there are debates. Did he actually commit suicide? Was it a body double of Hitler who committed suicide? Because there are stories that Hitler was spotted in Argentina. And after the war, somehow South America and Argentina especially became a hub for all the Nazis who kind of escaped. So if you look at, like I said, Adolf Eichmann, who was one of the major characters and major Nazi workers, party workers, or major people in the party, he was found in Argentina, right, by the Mossad, and he was brought back to Israel, put on trial, and
Oh,
then
correct,
hung
correct. Yeah,
and all
that
that.
movie was on.
We
Yeah,
have
I've
that
seen
movie
that
as well.
movie, yes.
So there's that crazy doctor, Nazi doctor Mengele. He was never found. People knew that he was in Argentina. They were almost about to catch him, but he got alert after this capture of Adolf Eichmann. So a lot of things happened. So basically, long story short, he committed suicide, and that's. But World War II ended only when Japan surrendered. Japan
Right.
had still not yet surrendered. European theater was over. The European
But
side
they
was
surrendered
done.
only after the
Yeah,
nuclear bombing.
after the nuclear bombing is when
They
they said.
realize it's not
Then they realized that okay, they have something, a weapon that's so
powerful.
destructive that it's not worth. And
Correct.
that's it. And that's
So-
when World War II ended. 1945, I think August 9th was when I think Hiroshima happened. 12th was Nagasaki, something like that. But August 1945.
Right. So I think, yeah, all in all, very sad turn of events. And
Something
now
that didn't need to happen again.
didn't need to happen
yeah.
again. And I also feel, Arjun, nowadays I see so many wars happening. It just scares me so much that why are we going in that direction, right?
It is scary. It is
Yeah,
scary. And
why people are thinking in a way, in a destructive way. We can all just live in harmony, why we have to think.
But
Anyways,
But now, if it happens, it'll be for slightly different reasons. One is, yeah, control is obviously there. I won't think now people are looking at like expansion of land. It's more power and
it's all,
control
I
and
think it's
money.
more,
It's more money.
money and I think preserving their own culture or own
Could be.
people.
Could be.
People are trying to be more united, I think.
Now it'll be more on ethnic and religious lines, is what I feel.
Correct. Yeah.
Like if the way things are going, it's more on the ethno-religious lines,
Right.
and that's again dangerous. It shouldn't happen.
It shouldn't happen. We should all learn to live in harmony.
In the end.
Okay. So, okay, so I think with this sentence, I would like to end our episode and say thank you to all of you for joining us, and we'll have such episodes coming in. So please tune in, like, share, subscribe. Thank you guys. Bye.
Bye, guys.